Okay. What up?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Wow.
We're already recording, so
Great.
just letting you know we're already going.
Oh my God, I'm such a hot mess right now. I'm trying to put on some jewelry for you.
Ooh.
Nice.
Not working out.
Okay.
This is the one time I got
This
dressed.
mic isn't working, just so you know.
I never get dressed for Zooms, so this is
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really dressed or anything.
You look great.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice.
How are you guys?
Good.
Good. How are you?
All right. Are you ready? We'll do a quick intro, and then it's your game. You're just telling your story.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Cool. This is Open Walkie. We have Chelsea Sinclair today, producer. Kelly is with us also. Kelly Beeman.
Hello.
Okay. Chelsea, go. Tell us about your life.
About my life. Well, first things first, if I get interrupted in the middle of this, it's because we're always on call, are we not?
Yep.
So just putting that out there.
All good. We'll work around your schedule. Thank you for being here.
Oh yeah, of course, you guys. This is like I'm a big like podcaster as of late. Like I've been listening to more podcasts, and so seeing what you guys are doing, that's so cool.
Nice.
You know?
Nice.
How long has this been going on?
It started in 2019 with Tony Bartolini and Rags, and Tony, they just had some downtime, and Tony was like, let's bring people over to my basement and like record them. And so he's kind of the idea guy behind it. And then then COVID hit, and so they didn't do it for a long time, but they did several episodes the first season. It was just audio, so it wasn't any video.
Right. It's a new feature.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Tony and I developed a podcast for another person last year, and he was like, we should just do the Zoom with Open Walkie. And so it's kind of taken off from there. Rags is still very much a host and a part of it and involved, but we also have enlisted the Jeffs, Jeff Canfield and Jeff Tan, as like hosts so that we can do more episodes and hosts kind of switch out. So it's a different vibe. And then I built the website and was doing like the production management, but I get roped into hosting sometimes.
That's awesome.
We need you, Kelly. You need to rotate.
I like it.
I love to
see some females in there.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love to see it. I feel like everybody during COVID like got super creative. They were like, we have no idea what's in store for us, like in our industry especially. And so we all just jammed out. At least I did. And it sounds like you guys did too.
Yeah. Well, boredom is the birthplace of all creativity.
That is.
Is that a real saying? I've never heard that before.
I mean, it's what I believe. I just made it up now.
That needs to be on a t-shirt.
I'm sure someone somewhere else has said it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to steer this back. So tell us about, you could start anywhere. Tell us about your career. Tell us about how you got into TV.
Oh my God. Well, I feel like I'll start with actually what happened during the pandemic for me.
Okay.
And then work my way back and then forward again. But yeah, no, the reason I say that I feel like everybody kind of like went into straight hustle mode during COVID was just because I was speaking for myself, really. So yeah, I am a reality TV producer. Obviously, during that time, everyone was shut down, everything was shut down. And so I took the opportunity to like really hone my creativity. Like as a producer, I'm constantly writing. I'm constantly developing segment ideas and like ultimately seeing those through execution, right? But I've always had like a big passion for development, simply because I think I went to school for creative writing, and I thought like way back when that I was going to be a script writer. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to work in scripted. And yeah, I took like mad screenwriting classes. And so I've always really loved to write, and I've loved writing, I've loved storytelling. And so it's kind of been awesome working in reality TV because it's real people, real stories. And so, not a ton of, actually on all my shows, I've been doing a ton of writing, but like, not every show, has those beat sheets and like things like that. So some people just go in and do it. But so yeah, during COVID, I took that time to kind of like hone my development skills. And I went ahead and, started developing this project that I've had on my slate for a really long time, and, saw it all the way through. I did pitch deck, sizzle tape. Like I was conducting interviews this is like before Zoom was like the it feature, I was using like, what's that other one?
Google Meets.
No, it's older. Skype.
Skype.
What's that other thing? Skype.
Yeah, like that was before I had the Zoom subscription, Yeah. So yeah, I was doing like Skype interviews with people. And so like I ended up like packaging my perfect, the project that I've been wanting to do forever. And I ended up, sending it out to the masses, like, certain production company executives that I knew. And I got the immediate feedback was like, yeah, no. Like it was like, there's, we've not that we've seen this before, but it's like it's a weird format in a sense, like we don't know where it would go. Like it can have a home on multiple different channels, but like it wasn't like perfect for any. So they were just kind of like, yeah, no, pass. And I was like, wow, the one time that I like actually, buckle down and do this thing, it was a gigantic slap in the face. Like, nope, not good, not happening. And so I was definitely a little bit like discouraged at that point, but persevered through that. And I kept developing throughout the entire lockdown. And I, that was first of many, many ideas. I just need like the guts to get up and try again. Cause it's like, I'd never done development. And so I ended up, working on my next idea. And I kind of like started being more vocal about what I was doing. Like I was telling friends in the industry, like, hey, I'm developing or I'm trying to, like, would love to, get your eyes on it, get your opinions, and then, just open the door for collaboration because I do really well collaborating with people, right? So I ended up from that, kind of leap of faith. I met somebody who actually I was introduced to somebody through a good friend of mine in this industry. And we started like partnering up on the project that I was working on. And it, it was incredible to like see the meeting of the minds happen. And like my idea turned into something so much greater because, I had somebody to kind of riff with. And we ended up completing that project, and I took it out to that same production company that told me no. And they were like, now this is something we can get behind. Like, this is a great idea. This is packaged really well. It's like marketable. And so from there, I got like a little bit of a confidence boost. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens. Like, I did not think anything of it. I just, kind of pushed that off and I kept on developing. And now I had a business partner and we were like constantly developing. And it ended up being like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 projects that we banged out throughout that time period, during the lockdown. And then like one day you just get the call like, oh my God, like this has been pitched out and people are interested. And you're like, what? Like it was, Yeah, it happened, fairly quickly. And then some of our other projects started gaining traction. And, it was being pitched. All of our projects had been sold at that time to like production companies. And then, pitch meetings started happening, and then the ball was rolling super fast. And my business partner and I saw a ton of early success in that time. And, one of our projects, ultimately got a development step, and we went out and we shot a pilot for that for like a major streamer, which was insane. Mainly because I got to be on the ground actually producing that one. Development's weird like that. Like it's almost like you're giving a baby up for adoption most of the time, and then like you never see that, project come to fruition. You kind of just sell a bit and then you move on. But fortunately, I got to be on the ground actually producing that pilot, and it was like one of my career highlights for sure. And then one of our other projects, fully greenlit, like straight to series. And we were like, what? Like, this doesn't happen.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was wild. And we actually got to be like involved in those pitch meetings like early on. Like I was on Zoom with like heads of networks, and I had never done a pitch before. Like, so it was
crazy.
It was wild. Like the early success we saw was super exciting, also kind of rare. And I don't know what it was like.
I would say very rare, because
right.
You're still like younger in your career. And when I met you, I believe you were an AP. I can't remember exactly. And then you started telling me you're developing shows. I'm like, awesome, great, like good for you. Anyone that's into that, just do it, keep doing it. And then you're like, I think I just sold the show. And I'm like, what? I'm like, and then yeah, like you're saying, you just got the ball rolling, and that is rare, and that's awesome that you got into that early. Because some people never even get it together. They just constantly work on other people's shows and complain about it.
I don't have it together like at all whatsoever. Like when we
well, no one does, but you know what I'm saying.
But it was it was just like it was something that was kind of passing the time for me, but it was also something that like I'm so deeply passionate about. Like I love storytelling. Clearly, I talk a lot. So you can only imagine how I write. Very flowery. But yeah, so it was just like something to pass the time. And then like bringing in a partner and like being able to collaborate and like bounce ideas off of each other. And like she actually had, a background in development. So it was an incredible asset to like kind of have her mind and her skill set. And then for me, like I was the complete opposite, where like I'm in the field, like in the thick of it. Like I know what's realistic. I know like, just kind of how to take that story through. Like sometimes with development, it's like, let's just figure out what's going to sell. And I'm like, no, because that's an absolute nightmare for the producers that are in the field working with something that's just like complete bullshit. And so, like I've been in that situation where I'm like, this definitely is just all, put together in a pretty little package, just ultimately to sell. But for me, like, it was really important that I found something that was like organic and something that, kind of the story would tell itself. So those are the projects that we like really honed in and focused on. And it was like a lot of casting, like, searching for these people with real stories. And yeah, ultimately, I think I owe it all to definitely our perseverance during that time, because we were like, we need to do something, because are we ever going to work again, But I think it was driven more by like collaboration and like just extreme passion for this industry in general. So it was wild. And I say, was because it's been a minute since I've developed something. I want to say like a couple of months, so I definitely have the itch again, and I'm like on the hunt for something else. But we'll see. I'm still, now that we're like back full force, it's hard. Like it's hard to have time for passion projects, because we're all just hustling and on a grind all day, every day.
Yes.
So
we are. Okay, so for audience members that don't know as much as or some actual people that work in this industry, could you explain quickly, or like in a few sentences, what's the process of development? Like you come up with an idea, then what do you do?
it's so crazy because I feel so weird speaking to this because like this is people's like actual job, like development producers or like development executives. Like I feel like I still have so much to learn about this facet of the industry. But speaking from my own experience, like how it happened for me, essentially I start off with an idea, right? But almost before that, actually, I start off with like a concept, like a really large, grandiose concept. And then I'm like, and it's almost like a world. And then I'm like, who is in this world? So for example, like if I'm looking for, trying to think of like, if I can give an example, I don't know if I can, because I was going to do the example of the show that was sold, but it hasn't been announced yet. But I think it's being announced in the next couple of weeks. So
say it's sports, just pick sports.
Generally, yeah. Like so let's say I want to do a show in, I'll just say where I'm from, Long Island, New York, right? And I'm like, okay, I want to do a show on Long Island, but like, who's in the world, right? Like, who are Long Islanders? And then I'm like, what's the hottest spot on Long Island? And then I go down like a deep rabbit hole of like, okay, where's the place to be here? Like, and then I go on their Instagram or I go on their website and I'm looking through tagged things and I'm like, who frequents these places? And then I start like to find people, right? So I did like a lot of casting through social media. Like I did it, I mean, don't we all? But it was never like me putting out ads for things. It was just me doing like the deepest dives into like who is in this world, right? And so, I was a creep for sure on Instagram, TikTok. I'm like, looking for people. And I ultimately just shot my shot and I DM'd them and I was like, hey, I'm a reality TV producer, like developing this series about people who live on Long Island and frequent this place. Like, would you be interested in talking to me over Zoom? And like 90% of the time, people were down, surprisingly, to chat with me. But then there was like 10% that were like, this is a scam. Like, who are you? And I'm like, and I respect those people because there's a shit ton of scams out there. And, so I'd have to do like a little bit of, this is who I am. And like, these are the projects that I've worked on. And this is something like a new entity entirely separate from like Chelsea, the producer. Like, this is like Chelsea doing her passion project. Like, so it was weird because I had no credit. Like I had no like leg to stand on in the development world. So it was kind of like, yeah, I've never developed a show before, but I'm giving it a shot. Like, do you want to be on board? Like, get on the ground with me. And, so then I would take it to video chat. Like I Skyped a bunch of people, had hours upon hours of conversations with people, then would ultimately like spend time cutting those down. So I like really had to, hone my editing skills, which I hadn't used since college. And, ultimately from that, I put together like a little sizzle tape of like my conversations that I've had with these people. And then once the sizzle tape was done, then I sort of would actually simultaneously start the deck, right? And it's like, what's missing in my deck that I can add into my sizzle, vice versa. And the deck is sort of like a creative Bible for those who don't know, which basically sets up, the world, right? The format of the show ultimately, like whether it's a docu-follow or an ocu-series where like we're following people's jobs or, how is this ultimately going to break down into a format for television, right? So you lay all that out, and then you're introduced to your characters on the deck. And that's why, like, I love to do the editing of their Skypes or, you know, casting tapes first, because I feel like I really knew them by speaking with them and then going through their best moments. And I was able to like clearly translate that onto the deck. And like, these are our characters. Like, this is who they are, what they do, where they're from, what their like motivation is, and, you know, all that. So yeah, that was like the biggest parts of my deck. And then as I started like getting more and more into pitch meetings, I started realizing that like the biggest thing that networks want to know is why now? And like, what's the unifying principle here? Like, why this group of people and why now? And so I was like, that's like a very loaded question most of the time. So ultimately you have to figure out a way to include that in your pitch. And so little like, you know, things I didn't know and things I'm still learning about development. But yeah, ultimately finding your people, interviewing those people, putting together a pitch deck, and then seeing what happens. That's what happened for me. I don't know.
Sounds so awesome. And like, congratulations on all your success. You know, working in post-production and production offices during pre-pro, like I've dealt with a lot of network development people, and they are the ones that tend to put things in pretty packages. But I think being also in the field and understanding camera coverage and like what we can fit into a day, like a daily schedule that makes sense, you know, how you shoot things by location and not necessarily in chronological order. So I think that you have sort of an upper hand knowing, like, taking and developing your own ideas, and then also understanding what happens with the crew in the field to accomplish that goal is like very much an asset to your creativity.
Well,
so
thank
congratulations.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it is kind of crazy. And that's why I felt like, you know, my business partner at the time and I were sort of like lightning in a bottle, because she had the development brain and like knew exactly how to package something. And then I sort of like, I don't know, I just had like a different skill set, like you said, that added value, you know?
Yeah.
You had
Especially
more the on-set experience and understanding of what it takes to like, please shoot the show.
And understanding like a format, right? Like, it's like, you know, how we're going to get out of this like episode. How do you get out of episode 1? You know what I mean? And it's like, sure, I could tell you that like this is going to be a show about people who visit this deli on Long Island, like the best deli, whatever. Such a bad idea. just whatever. And it's like,
hey,
okay,
that's a Food Network show in there somewhere.
I've never developed someone's
I
definitely
actually think someone could sell that show.
Oh my God. Let's do it. Let's all partner on it.
Yeah, let's do it. I would love to get into development because I have ideas. I think we all do. Like, we all get into this business because we love telling stories. We love creating scenarios and, you know, finding interesting characters that have many layers and depth. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing. But tell us how you got started, like, you know, where you grew up.
Yeah.
All the basics, and then how did you get into TV and film in New York or wherever you started, actually?
Right. Okay. So like I said, I went to school, you know, got my bachelor's degree. And I only say that like that because I feel like I didn't need to go to school to do what I'm doing. That's crazy to say. Oh my God, my parents would kill me if they heard that. But yeah, I don't know. So I
probably right.
It's true. Like that's a whole other.
Definitely on the job training, because I went to school for theater and dance and, moved to New York when I was 22, but
Wow.
I didn't know anything.
I know.
I
Seriously.
had a BFA in acting.
I guess it's something to fall back on for sure. Like, I can't say that it was a gigantic waste of my time. Like I learned a lot and I love school. That's not a lot of people say that about school, but I do. I love like academia and I can even
I love learning. I love learning, whatever it is.
And I think like that's what makes us good in this industry too, is because like we love learning about people. We love learning about process. Like, we're all kind of type A. But anyway, I'm like, as I'm saying that, my ADHD, I actually don't have ADHD like diagnosed, but I feel like
I definitely do.
Developed it.
You have something diagnosed. I've known you long enough. Not too bad though, just a little bit of something.
Okay.
I definitely am.
Centering myself. Okay, so I went to college, actually at the University of Tampa.
Right,
yeah. We're going.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
So I grew up on Long Island, like, broke away from my family, everything that I knew, everything that I loved. Like I loved growing up on Long Island, love my family, super close with them. And so I ended up, when I went away to college, I was like, I was missing them. I was missing home. And I was like, I'm just going to dive into my schoolwork. Right. Like, so I just took it super seriously. And I did a ton of television film classes. I did internships while I was there. And I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, I thought I was going for script writing for, scripted television or film. But ultimately, it didn't turn out that way because when I graduated, I was kind of like, how do I even go about this? Like, how do I even break into this industry? Like, that's the first step is breaking in. And I felt like the internships I had done were like super local to Florida. And like the market there is not what the market in New York is. And so like, I felt like I couldn't really, like those connections weren't going to take me anywhere, if that makes sense. So I kind of felt like, after I graduated, and I graduated early too, that I like had to start over. And I was like, how do I even do this? Like, how do I even break into the New York television and film market? I know nobody, like college didn't prepare me for this. Right. And I ended up just like talking with my family about it, like venting about it to my family. Like, what am I going to do? Like, did I make a mistake? Like, how am I going to break in? And my dad actually, like a light bulb went off in his head. And he was like, grandpa's best friend's daughter,
Oh my God.
might work in TV. And I'm like, Dad, like, hello, I'm having a panic attack over here about my life. And he's like, why don't I like call grandpa? So I called grandpa and I ended up connecting with his best friend's daughter, who was a production accountant. Okay. So like,
nice.
Not anywhere in the field. Like, yes, in our industry, yes, we have production accountants, but like, I'm not that girly. Although this will play into my story. I did start off in production management and I killed it. I loved production management because I think I'm super type A. But anyway, so she was like a production accountant for this big, production company in New York City. And I was like, can I just meet you for a coffee and like pick your brain about this industry? Like, ultimately, I want to be a producer. She worked in production accounting, but she knew a lot of producers. She was in the mix, right? She's signing their paychecks.
Did you know what a producer was when you were in college? Because I think often people are like, I want to be this, and they actually have no clue what it is.
Oh, yeah, I totally had no idea. Sorry, I had to crack open my I don't have a Diet Coke and it's upsetting, but I do have a seltzer.
Seltzer.
Okay, so I was like, can I just meet with you and pick your brain? And I, at the time, was living at home with my parents on Long Island, not close to the city because Long Island is fucking long. Okay.
Where in Long Island?
Well, right now I live in Mount Sinai, which is like super deep. Like I'm like 30 minutes from the Hamptons. So like deep.
East.
Yeah.
At the time I was living in Smithtown, which is Suffolk County, but still like an hour and a half from the city.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, yeah, why don't you come meet me at my office? And I was like, and we'll go out for like a coffee on my lunch break. And I was like, oh my God, like got ready. Like I feel like, it was my moment. Like I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to a production office. Like I was super stoked on that. And I took it really seriously, brought like a notebook. I'm like ready to take notes. Like I wanted to know everything about her and like I wanted to know everything about this industry. I was just so curious about how I do this, how I break in. And her and I met at a coffee shop like right next. Actually, I went into the production office and I was like, oh my God, like this is like where I need to be. Like just the energy, like walking through the halls, I saw like the producer pit, like all those people just like collaborating. I saw the edit bays. Like I was just like, this is it. Like I knew I was supposed to be, in this industry because I just like got super excited about it. We met for coffee and she basically, I don't know, like her and I hit it off. And we're also like, we have the familial connection. Like it was easy for us to connect, but she was just so incredibly helpful. Like shout out to Kim Weiler, because without Kim Weiler, okay, I would not be where I am today, because Kim told me, basically everything I needed to know. And
what advice did she give you? Because part of this podcast is giving people advice.
Oh, invaluable advice. I have a terrible memory, but essentially she told me that like networking is the most important thing about this industry. And she's spitting off names at me and I'm jotting them down in my notebook. Like, oh, there's this production executive that I worked with. And like, she's throwing out random names. And the one name that comes to my mind too, because he and I actually connected and I ended up working with him for a long time, Fergal O'Gorman, who's like the production executive at Cineflix. She like jotted out his name and I was like, Fergal, I'm never going to forget that. But I like jotted it down and like, I'm taking all these notes. And then when I got home, I was like, okay, now what? And I started looking these people up, finding these people on LinkedIn or whatever. And then she ended up connecting me like via email with a lot of the people that she was mentioning. And she's like, I'm giving you this, like it's up to you to do something with it, And so I just like, to be honest with you, I had a whole spreadsheet of all of her people that she introduced me to, their names, where they worked, emails. And for every single day for like 2 months after that meeting with Kim, I would go into the city to have a coffee with one of those people. So like every day I'm doing the commute, an hour and a half into the city.
You were proactive about it.
Yeah, because I wanted it.
Dedicated, and the perseverance. You were talking about your perseverance earlier, and like I wouldn't have ever been that dedicated, I don't think.
Yeah, I just
that's awesome.
So bad. Like
yeah.
And I knew I was meant for it. Like I was, people graduate college and they're like petrified, or people graduate college and they're dreading going into the corporate world, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like so excited. I couldn't wait. Like my dad always tells me like I have no patience and I want everything yesterday. Like that's so true. That's exactly how I operated when I graduated. I was like, I want this job in this industry yesterday. So like, I literally did that for 2 months straight, met up with people to have a 15-minute coffee conversation just to pick their brain and like introduce myself. And ultimately that led to my first job. And then from there, like I ended up,
which was what? Could you talk about?
What was your first job? Yeah.
Yeah.
My first job was at Abigail Disney's production company. So yes, like Abigail Disney of the Disney family. She has her own production company called Fork Films. And I was, an office PA in Abigail Disney's office, and became super like they do content like, oh God, I haven't checked them out in a really long time, but they do like a lot of like women's rights and activism focused docs, mostly like documentaries and docuseries. So it was just like an incredible environment to be in. And I like was working for the head of production. And she was just such a great mentor to me because she was friends with Kim. So she's like, I'm going to take care of her because, she's Kim's girl, whatever. And so I quickly like just got right into it. And I started as an office PA, which for those people who don't know is like the production management route. It's like, if you're going to be a PA in the field, like you can kind of go whatever direction. But if you're an office PA and you're in the office and you're good at paperwork, people are going to want to keep you in that lane, and you end up like going the production management route, which is what I did. So I ended up like getting a job at a network. Okay. And, getting thrown into, PAing on like an actual set, which was different than what I had been doing at Fork Films in the office. And it was wild. Like I was also at the network. So I was like, oh my God, like, I couldn't believe it. It ended up being like the hardest thing I've ever had to go through because I got literally thrown into the fire. They were like, as soon as they were already filming, like by the time I started or like just started filming. And so it was like, you're in it, like you are in it. And, ultimately, I ended up getting fired from that job as a PA. And it's like the only job in my whole life that I've ever gotten fired from.
All right. You got to tell us why. What'd you do?
Okay. It's so wild. And this speaks to like, some parts of the industry that are a little bit like hectic for no reason. I don't know. I was a PA that like I had no idea. It was my first time on a set, right? And I'm trying to absorb all this information and things are happening so fast and there's not a lot of like teaching time. Like it's like you just have to do it. And I'm somebody who needs to like, I'm that type of learner that needs to be shown something. And that just it wasn't the case here. Like they were in it. And they had asked me to like run a case of water to like an executive meeting on like the 40th floor. Like I'm going to like the suits. Okay. Like they're like, we need you to run waters to like the suits. And I was like, okay. So like, me, Canfield, and my bad back. Like I'm lugging that thing. I'm like, I have a whole case of water, like some nice ass Fiji's, whatever it is. And I bring it up to the meeting room and I see that all of these people are in the meeting room. And I'm like, I can only imagine who is sitting in that room, right? And they're all in the middle of their meeting. So like, I didn't know as a PA that I should be walking into that room and putting the waters in the room for them. So I left the waters outside the door.
And that's it.
That's why they fired you.
I think it was like that on top of other examples like that, where I just like didn't know better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what? That happens all the time. It's happened to me where I'm like, it's not my fault. I just didn't know the protocol and told me.
Who would interrupt that meeting to like
no, and that's super intimidating when you're a young person starting out, like walking onto a set and being like, I have to deliver you this paperwork, executive producer, and you're like, oh my God, don't yell at me.
Yeah. It's like things like that you just like you would never know unless you were in that position. And so And it's not something they felt that they had to tell me either, because like, you know, I'm a capable human, but it's just like you have it in your head, like, I'm on a set, like this is, everybody's important. Like, you know, so I was definitely not aggressive back then. And I definitely, Cam feels like I can't believe that's the same person.
Yeah.
I'm like aggressive now.
I would have guessed it was
not a failure if you took away a lesson from it. And I bet you never made that mistake.
No, I definitely, it was like the most soul crushing moment for me to like, because like I said, I had never gotten fired from any job. Okay. And I've been working since I'm 15 at like Panera Bread, restaurants. Like I did like always want the gold star for like a lot of my life. And so for that to happen, and you know, they were in their own right, I guess, to let me go. It wasn't working out. I was too much of a, like, you know, they didn't have time to teach me. And they needed somebody who just knew what to do, right? They needed somebody more experienced.
I would have guessed you crashed a car or something. I don't know. When you said that, in my head, I was like, she probably like ran into something with a car.
No, but it was like I said, it wasn't just that. It was, I'm sure, other things that I did wrong. But that was the most soul crushing thing to ever happen to me. Actually, I was ready to give up completely, like, in this entire industry. Like, I was like, I'm not cut out for this. This is too intimidating. This is too cutthroat. This is too unpredictable. And I went into like a deep, dark hole for a while. And like, I didn't think that I would ever work again in this industry again. Like, you'll never work in this town again. Like, you see that in all the Hollywood movies. Like, that's what I literally thought was going to happen to me. And,
what'd you do next?
Fergal. It was Fergal.
Oh,
Fergal, back to Fergal.
Oh, Gordon.
I have a question. How old were you when that took place?
I had to have been 21, 22.
Yeah, so you're a baby.
Babe. Such a little babe. And some will say I'm still a little babe. But
or to some degree.
Yeah, no, I was like fresh out of school, like never had worked on a set in my life. Couldn't even believe I got the opportunity, honestly. Like it was unbelievable, like just to even be considered for that position. And to get that position and then to fail in that position, it was just like it killed me. I was unwell. So, you know, Fergal, like I kept working my network after that. Like I just mustered up whatever I had left, whatever spark I had left. And I just like worked my network and I kept going on those coffee dates. I kept up with it and then reconnected with Fergal, who then offered me a position at Cineflix, like a staff position in their production management department. And yeah, worked for them for a while. And then I like worked up the production management ladder fairly quickly. And within like 3 years, I was a production manager. And I worked for other, you know, various New York production companies. And I met, and then, you know, at my last production management job, I ended up meeting a producer who like completely changed my whole life and got me into the world of producing, like actually was the person who gave me a shot at producing, you know, and because it's hard. It's so hard to make the shift from production management to producing. It's hard to make the shift, but the skills translate completely. So it's like, I never understood that. It's like, why can't I produce? I was always told like, you're in production management, like you're in it forever. And I'm like, but I don't want to be in it forever. Like I want to be a producer. And they're like, well, it's too late. You know?
No, you can always transition. I think production management is a good place to start because you get to learn a little bit about every department. But definitely not somewhere I wanted to stay for a long period of time.
Right. I know. And like, I feel like, people people get into this industry to be in production management. Like people like want to be UPMs, people like want to be line producers, and people love numbers and staying organized. And that's great. Like that's a whole, there are people who are after that. But I think like for me, I was good at it, like I said, because I'm super type A and like I love a spreadsheet. But there was just too much like creativity in me where I was like, I can't be doing this, this isn't my future. It was like a good short-term plan, but I took it as, even though it was a short-term plan for me, I took it just as seriously as if it were like my lifelong plan. Like I was like, I'm going to do my best. Like I'm going to be a great production coordinator. I'm going to be a great, production manager. I didn't like slack because it wasn't what I ultimately wanted to do. But I met that producer that like changed my whole world. And she was like, what do you want to do? I didn't even work with her because I was in production management, like staff, that I like barely crossed paths with this woman in the office. But like when I did, I made a point to like have a conversation with her and stop and like, ask her about her day and ask her about what she's working on. And this is Pam Lilima.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so her and I don't know, we just kind of like hit it off and we started like having water cooler chats, and she's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm working in production management. Like I'm staff here, whatever. And she's like, oh, like that's what you've always wanted to do. I'm like, no, like I want to be a producer more than anything. And that's like ultimately where I see myself. And she's like, well, I'm looking for an AP. And I was like, okay, like, cause I never thought like she would give me that shot. And I had to like, it had to process. I was like, wait, are you talking like are you considering me? And she's like, I'm looking for an AP if you wanted to like give it a try. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to like go have conversations with like my bosses and be like, because Pam was working at the production company on a specific show and I was staff at the company. So I had to be like talking to my bosses, like, can I like help Pam out on this show? Like still do my job, but like, can I also help Pam out? And they ultimately, let me. I had to do both. Like I had to be a production coordinator at the time and an AP at the same time. And like that was the only way I was going to get my shot, is if I like did double, But I sacrificed like my time and like my sanity for like a bit, and just did it because I knew it was my shot,
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it's kind of history. It really is kind of history from there. Down.
Awesome.
I know you're pressed for time, so
I know this sucks.
Because we get it, you're busy and you have meetings. So you told us about kind of a bad experience. What's your favorite job you've ever worked on? Or favorite situation that ever happened at work?
Oh God, it's so easy to like focus. It's so easy for like your mind to go to the negatives when it comes to, this is going to sound, I want to like think about how I'm wording this, but this industry is like a double-edged sword, It's like there's so much passion and like there's so much creativity. There's so many good things about what we do. Like we give voices to voiceless people. We like promote people's businesses. Like we do really good work, almost always. And the intention is always 100% good, but that comes at a price, I think, to like our, like, I don't know, like our energy, our mental health, our time. And so like, it's so easy for like to take it that way. Like, oh, I'm tired. I'm overworked and I'm missing moments, but there's so many moments that we miss, right? Like good moments because we're like just so in it. So when you ask me like what's my favorite moment on a set, like I think it's just like I'll just give the most recent example because I just feel like there's so many. So many moments that I like haven't appreciated either, you know? Most recently an episode aired that like I just like I you know work so hard on. Like I took like that idea from like literally the vision board through fruition, right? Like to fruition. And every part of that episode, every segment, every prop, every like conversation, every whatever was like something that our team had like worked so incredibly hard on. And it was and I can talk about it because it just aired. It was on Jersey Shore family vacation, Mike, the situation, skydiving for his gender reveal. Like I watched that episode and I laughed, I cried, like I had all of the emotions for that episode. I don't know. It was just like I was doing the interviews with Mike and I don't know, like I just felt like I was really proud of that episode. Like it was just seeing it just come together so beautifully. Like the whole team like was just so incredibly proud. And I think like that camaraderie, like that pride, like all of us texting each other, like that was such a great episode. Like we can all come together and really like appreciate the hard work and appreciate the fruits of our labor and all those like tireless hours and creative meetings and like everything about it. So, and that happens for us all the time. And sometimes we're too busy to like recognize, that that's a moment.
In the moment. Absolutely. I have a question for you. Did you work on a show in Scottsdale in a bubble?
In a bubble, yes.
I
did.
I was like, she looks so familiar. I can't, but it just hit me. Me and Aaron O'Malley were the agents on that.
You were.
But many years before that, you had texted me about a job because when your text message popped up, I was like, oh, she texted me at like 2013 or something about a job at a production company.
Back in my production manager days.
So cool. Okay, good to see you again. I'm sorry it took me so long to
put that together. No, same. I was looking at you and I'm like, I recognize this person. I just couldn't put it together. But that's crazy. Yeah, the world, it's so small. That's why that's why networking in our industry is the most important thing to do and to maintain, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's like you don't want to ever get pigeonholed somewhere because you could wake up one day and that show could be canceled. You could wake up one day and there could be a pandemic. You could wake up one day and whatever. So you just never want to lose the network, really, is I think the biggest thing.
Is that your advice? Because we always finish.
Yeah. What would your advice be for your younger self or people just starting out in the industry?
Bring the water into the room.
Bring the water into the meeting.
Like if they're asking for water,
no matter what seat's in there.
Then you want to know what I said? I was like, you know what? Somebody somewhere should have thought to put water into the meeting before the meeting started.
It started, yeah.
It wasn't your fault.
It wasn't your fault.
No, well, I'm not going to God, I'm so nervous about this whole conversation. Why am I nervous? Because it was my lived experience. But yeah, I guess my biggest advice is to just really be aggressive, go after it, go have that coffee with that person, send that cold email, reach out, you're never going to get anywhere if you don't ask for it, right? Especially like that's in life. It's like you're never going to get that raise if you don't make it known that you want one. You're never going to get that, I don't know, like you're never going to get that house if you don't put a bid in. Like it's just, you have to make it known what you want and to just go after it. Like even with the development stuff, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing at all, but I just went after it. And like, we can all do it. I tell everybody, like, if you want to develop, like you have all of the skills, like you are professionals in this field. Like you could put this together, no problem. Like we already have a leg up just working in this field. So just do it. Just go after it. Just get it.
Okay, we're gonna let you go. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna literally text you in 10 minutes having a full-blown panic attack about everything.
Oh no, you're good. It's so good to see you again.
Thank you guys.
Yes.
I'm gonna cut the recording, okay?